This bolt here is 13 millimeter. Just turning them one little turn at a time. Okay, pop this off. Okay, that one comes off. Just remove this one from one of the plugs, this yellow wire. And this red one goes on that same plug underneath. So what do you think is the ground wire? So that one goes off. This yellow wire, I thought it was just a spade connector, and actually when I cleaned it, what it is it's just a screw down mechanism. That's a 7 millimeter hex. There's my, those are hex bolts. And one of the things I do with hexes is I like to clean out the inside with one of these picks. It's probably got some grime in there that might prevent the Allen key from going all the way in. And I don't think it's it's going to matter in this case, but it's just a rule of thumb. I don't like Allen keys actually, because they're easy to strip. The way you kind of lessen that likelihood is you just clean out the interior, so your Allen key just fits nice and snugly with its full depth, and much less likely to strip anything. This is a 10 millimeter hex, and this is the tool that actually comes in the 911 toolkit. It's useful for a lot of things, and useful for this. Okay, and then just crank it down. Now, I don't know how much torque is on this thing. Okay, I'm gonna use 2 hands for that. Okay guys, I've managed to loosen the upper nut, and I have to tell you, even with the engine drop, it's not easy. It's easy to feel. If you can see here with this picture, you know, this job has nothing to do with vision, so you're really not missing anything with the video. But you see my hand here. You see I'm underneath the, see there's the starter motor, and you see my hand with the blue latex glove reaching up behind. Here's my hand up around the starter motor, and you can feel very easily this nut on the other end, but it's actually proved surprisingly difficult to get a wrench in there, and largely because the reason for that is it's very hard to do things purely by feel. You know, even if you were to actually see, you'd be groping around, and then you get a wrench on it, and then it's very hard to get some torque on it as well. There's the prize. That's the upper one right there. And then the lower one, which I already loosened, but now I can retrieve to get that upper nut. 2 tools did the trick. I have all sorts of assorted ratchets and extensions that I tried out. The one that allowed me to crack it was a trusty Allen key from the toolkit, and I placed that in on the passenger side, and then I went to the other side where it's hard to explain, but this was seated in the Allen bolt, and what I could do was I could push. You're pushing it counterclockwise. and so you're pushing up. And there was maybe like a half an inch to an inch of play, and that was enough where I could just push really hard, and I could crack that. I could crack the nut, which was sort of key. But then this wouldn't go any further, and since it's a hex, you couldn't. If it were 12 point, you could just do it again, get another quarter turn. But that was all that was good for, which is the major bit. And then what I did was, through a lot of trial and error, tried to get a socket in there. And again, feeling your feel is better from the passenger side, where the starter motor is. Got this one seated in, and then I positioned the ratchet over it. So what I ended up working was, again, this is without, I'm not gonna be able to pop this out. I had the Allen key, and I just put that in, inserted it by hand, because it's key that really engages, goes all the way down. And then I put the ratchet on top, where you can kind of move the ratchet so that they line up, and then you pop that closed. And then, again, moving again to the driver's side now to sort of actually twist it, I could push that up and start turning it. And that's how I was eventually able to unloosen that nut. Not easy, even dropping the engine. And I think I had to drop the transmission to get that key bit of space so that I could turn this, I don't know, maybe like an eighth of a turn, if that. I needed just that bit of height in the transmission tunnel. And to get that, I had to drop the gearbox down another inch or so. So again, I don't know how people do this without dropping the gearbox. Supposedly it's possible if you have the right tools, but gosh, it's hard enough with the gearbox drop. I was hoping that you go through all that trouble, it actually would be kind of simple. But it really, in retrospect, it wasn't that terrible, but it takes a lot of trial and error. Okay, what I'm going to do now is this motor is now no longer fastened, and I'll just sort of loosen it. I doubt it. Let's loose. Ooh, there we go. And you just slide it backwards towards the front of the car, and and I'm going to put the phone down and just remove it. But it just slid out, and now I'm going to try to wiggle it down through the gap here between all the cable wires and CV joints. Okay, the motor is removed, and you can see here the two studs. That's where the starter motor was. You see that farthest one doesn't look all that intimidating. It's not that far away, but when that old starter motor was there, it might as well be on the other side of the world. And there it is. So what we do now is we just sort of bolt in the new starter and connect it, and then reverse everything. Here's old and new. This looks to me like the original box starter that this car had when it was new. And it's done, the car is 140,000 miles, 35 years. And you can see it's much bigger than the new one. I bought sort of an aftermarket sort of high torque starter, which I don't think they really, back in the 80s, they didn't have these. The orientation's a little different. What's going to matter is where the bolt-on plate is going to be the same, at least I hope. This is supposed to fit. And then there's sort of the gear mechanism. The orientation seems a little bit different. So it might take some fiddling. It seems like this is the solenoid here, and the starter motor is there. That's what it looks like. The electrical connectors are here on this side, which are a little different. These are on the new starter, which are a little different from those on the old. So here are my two connections. I removed, this is where the yellow wire was, here was where the large black cable was, and the red one went onto that. And so when we hook up the new starter, by the way, after all this hassle, I'm really hoping this is just plug and play. This is where my red line is going to go. That's fairly clear. And then this is a different connector. It's sort of it's got a sort of connector like this, and what came in the box is sort of an extension like this. So this one will go into there like that. And then somehow I don't know exactly how I'm going to connect that to the wire that's in there. Okay, so new starter. So you go in this orientation up onto those two studs up there. The challenge is to wire up the replacement starter. And I don't know, this is a clip that actually goes into the starter. And it had sort of a loose end of wire. And the way I'm going to do is connect that to the kind of a ring contact which the old one used, using this screw. And so what I did was I soldered the wire to this, and then what I'll do is I'll put the ring over this, then a nut, a washer, and then the nut, and then I'll wrap it with electrical tape. That seems kind of like a half-assed sort of way of doing it, but I really don't know really an alternative. I guess the other thing I could do, the ideal thing would be to just cut the ring connector off of the present wire, and then do a real solder the two wires, splice them together, put shrink coating over it. But I'm kind of, first of all, that's way up inside the wheel well, doing that sort of soldering upside down, which I don't really want to do. And also is the fact that I'm not really sure about this new starter, and so I kind of want this reversible, so I could reinstall the stock unit if I have to. This should be a good electrical contact. One concern is that all the electrics are on the top of the new starter, so attaching them all could be out of sight, which I'm not really happy about. And no one really mentioned that in the various posts that I've read. They just said replacing the new starter is really, really straightforward, and in fact easier than reinstalling the stock unit. But I don't really see that, honestly. All right, folks. Here I've attached the. There it is. I've reattached the nut. See, you have the ring goes into that screw, and then my soldered piece, and that goes. The connector that goes into the new starter, and also gives me some extra length. And it doesn't look that bad. I'm going to wrap this up with electrical tape. Okay, not that pretty, but it looks to me like it's a solid electrical connection, which is really at this point all that matters. Now again, the problem is all of this stuff. Here are my two cables on the main. On the starter, and then the clip, I kind of have to do that. They're above there. They're going to be there out of sight, and so I think I'm going to have to figure out how to make those connections before I do that sort of one-handed while holding the starter in my hand, and then position it over the studs. Okay, folks, I'm doing the electrical connections on the new starter, and what you have to do is you have to put the electrical connectors on before positioning the motor into the studs. You see here, you see there the hole for the stud. It's not positioned there. You see on the top, I managed to get the two positive cables onto the manger post there, as well as, I don't think you can see there, I sort of clipped in that other connector. So I just have to tighten that nut up just a little bit. It only takes, I think, 7 foot-pounds of torque, so it's not clamped down that tightly, but I just could turn that. And then I'm going to position the starter into the studs. Okay, I put the starter is now mounted on the studs. Now all we have to do is attach those are Allen nuts with washers. You do the top one first. See how hard that one is. The new starter, God, I mean, the electricals were a lot harder than the stock one. Hopefully that hassle is compensated by a little bit easier time with the that top nut. Okay, tightening I attached those flange nuts. There's the one on the bottom. Easy one, and then the other one, not too bad. You see my There's sort of the long end of the Allen key there stuck into it, and so there's plenty of room. If I can get a socket into that, no problem. So that's the compensation for